Something surprising is happening in the Catholic Church. Thousands of young people are rediscovering the traditional Latin Mass. And according to Archbishop Héctor Aguer of Argentina, this is not a small trend. It could be a sign of a much larger revival. In a recent article, the retired Archbishop pointed to the famous Paris-to-Chartres pilgrimage in France. This year, more than 20,000 pilgrims took part. What caught his attention even more was their age. The average participant was only 22 years old. For Archbishop Aguer, this is evidence that many young Catholics are searching for something deeper. He described it as a recovery of Catholic tradition, a tradition that, in his view, had been weakened for decades by liberalism, progressivism, and growing secularism in the West. The Archbishop highlighted the beauty and history of the traditional Latin Mass. He noted that its roots go back many centuries, reaching as far back as the 7th and 8th centuries. For generations, this form of worship shaped Catholic life throughout the world. According to Aguer, the focus of the traditional Latin Mass is clear. It is directed first and foremost toward the worship and glory of God. He then turned to the changes that followed the Second Vatican Council. Aguer argued that some adjustments to the older Mass could have been made, just as minor changes have been introduced throughout history. But instead, he believes a much larger reform took place. A completely new form of the Mass was introduced during the pontificate of Pope Paul VI. The Archbishop acknowledged that the Novus Ordo Mass is valid. However, he argued that some aspects of the reform created ambiguities and allowed greater flexibility in how the liturgy is celebrated. One of the strongest parts of his article concerned Archbishop Bugnini, a major figure in the liturgical reforms. Aguer repeated a long-standing claim that Bugnini was connected to Freemasonry. This accusation has been debated for decades. Some historians have questioned the evidence, while others have argued that later information supports the claim. Aguer presented the allegation as established fact. Beyond that controversy, the Archbishop focused on what he sees as a more important issue. He believes that modern liturgy can sometimes risk shifting attention away from God and toward human activity. In his view, priests and faithful must work carefully to keep worship centered on God. Despite his concerns, Aguer ended on a hopeful note. He pointed not only to the Chartres pilgrimage, but also to similar traditional pilgrimages in Argentina, Spain, Italy, and other countries. For him, these events show that Catholic tradition is alive and growing. He believes orthodoxy and tradition remain strong and may play an important role in the future of the Church. The Archbishop also criticized what he sees as excessive creativity during Mass. He mentioned examples of clergy using unusual methods to attract attention, such as entering church on skateboards or dressing in costumes. According to Aguer, these actions can distract people from the sacred nature of the liturgy. Instead, he called for fidelity to the Church's liturgical traditions. His message was simple. The Mass is not about entertainment. It is not about creativity for its own sake. It is about worshiping God. And judging by the growing number of young Catholics attending traditional pilgrimages and Latin Masses, Archbishop Aguer believes many young people are discovering that message for themselves. Whether one agrees with all of his conclusions or not, one thing is becoming harder to ignore. Across several countries, a new generation is showing increasing interest in the Church's ancient traditions. And according to Archbishop Aguer, that may be one of the most hopeful signs for the future of Catholicism.